Hello and
What?
welcome to the Temple Mount Podcast. My name is Shogun. Joining me today is my friend Sandra, and Sandra would like to share some of her creative writing and poetry with us. And I'm not sure, but there will be a discussion afterwards, and maybe some other people might wish to share some poetry or do some writing and share that as well. But welcome, Sandra. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's it going, Shogi?
It's going good. I'm looking forward to this. Thanks for doing this. Before I forget, you can find this and all our other episodes on the Temple Mount and Roundtable podcasts on YouTube and BitChute, Temple Mount Official, and we do this on the Temple Mount Discord server. So that being said, Sandra, would you like to begin by sharing some of your writing with us?
Absolutely. So hey guys, my name is Sandra. I'm something else. So yeah, I have three different passages that I'll be reading today. They are some of these are like very hard to kind of interpret. Some of these kind of read like the Bible. And at the very end, of course, I want to open this up to anyone else that would like to read some writing or poetry because I think that would be pretty cool. So I'm going to take uh, the first one, and I'm gonna Shogun. Is there anywhere that I can appropriately post this within the server that people could read along? Sometimes it's easier to
It's fine to
read
just
along.
post it in general chat. That'll be the easiest for everyone to find, and that way everybody will see what you wrote.
Roger that. So I just posted the first one right there. Right. So the title of this one is "To the One Almighty Forever," and this was written on the 22nd of January 2024. So not too long ago. And I will read this and then go line by line what they all mean. Um, and then people could have an actually I would like feedback at the end of that because each of these is kind of its own story. But without further ado, here we go. So, to the one Almighty forevermore, she stands supreme, far above and removed from the grand and ever rapid streams that plead with sincere streams, an eerie but pleasant scene. Oh, she stands there, encompassed by golden infinite dreams, the light and gate of God itself, brings together a remorse of repentance and clarity of unfathomable pleasure. Nothing brings together this place of humanity and perspective capacity. Pleasure rings true through infinite chambers of wonder and creative expression. An angel's wings basks in euphoric rain, a place to be far beyond a life captivated by sin and displeasure. Heavenly body that sings of a petaled ring, fast in a golden fountain, it spews as rain floods streets of fractaled sights and tall mountains. God, may thy hands be captivated by ethereal infinite cauldrons of perfect infinity. Now be drowned down to the tiniest speck of time, an atom composed of all and nothing. Release me from the body of sensitive composition and ragged exposition. You are my one and true, bewitched and cursed light, forevermore, a perfect immense pulse of sacred and transformative might. The end. So,
Amen.
amen, amen, amen. Um, so basically, this when reading this, a lot of people that I've sent this to are kind of like interpret it very differently. But like the message overall of this is very positive, I would say. But if I had to kind of dissect it a little bit, um, I want to ask everybody, just looking at this and reading this, what is your first kind of like interpretation or takeaway from this passage? Cool. Makes sense.
I'd love to know,
Anyway.
Sandra.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd love to know how this came to you.
Um, I'll tell you exactly how this came to me. So I was going through some stuff relating my career field, and it was very intense and disheartening, but wonderful at the same time. And so I was going through a lot of mixed emotions of good and bad. The next passage is also related to this one. It's the polar opposite of it a little bit. Um, but what I was thinking about, this whole passage is kind of talking about me. It's talking about the my sense of self that is um like like perfect. What people would call their higher self essentially is what this is talking about, but it's talking about me. But when I read this, it almost sounds like I'm talking about someone else. because I don't think of my identity in relative bearing to this passage, even though it's talking about myself. So the whole thing is I would say, if I had to, I don't know, like oh, she stands there encompassed by the golden infinite dreams, the light of God and gate itself. So this is like that is just self-explanatory, talking about me, but in a higher self. Like, I know I came to this server again because I had drama going on in my life because I made bad decisions, right? And so this is talking about like the better aspect of me that sometimes I don't, you know, I don't have access to. Like, brings together a remorse of repentance and clarity of unfathomable pleasure. Again, that's referring to the sense of self that I have been, that I can be, that is part of me, but not always is present. And I think everyone has a, um, you know, with me expressing that, I think everyone here can say that they've got too that can be expressed through this. God, may thy hands be captivated by ethereal infinite cauldrons of perfect infinity. Now, that is also talking about the light of God himself, but also referring to me as like a reflection of him, right? So that's kind of what this goes through. I could go line by line with this one, but I do want to kind of cap this to an hour or a little under an hour if I can. But this whole thing, if knowing what I had said about it, I'm sure you can kind of see that I'm talking about higher aspect of myself in the light of God, and every person here sure can kind of relate to that in a way if you change words, because it's also condition as well. But moving on.
So, so,
So
so
yeah, go ahead.
Sandra, I do think listening to this, it reminds me of a podcast I listened to years ago on a radio show called The Hidden Brain. And what it talks about is how, out there, possibly in multiple universes, is the perfect aspect of ourselves that if we made just the right decision in every single aspect of our life from the time we were born to the present day, where we would end up. And we talk a lot about the Dune series here about the golden path of humanity, but it sounds like you're talking about almost like the golden path of an individual. That, what is the ideal path that we should all seek for, but almost none of us would ever reach. And it reminds me of the end scene in the movie The Last Samurai, where it's like we're all searching for a small piece of we're all searching for a small piece of quiet, of peace, of humanity that we all search for, but few of us ever find. So it seems like this you're talking about kind of like the ultimate search for something that we can never achieve, but the path of searching leads us to a tiny bit of being a better version of ourselves.
Thank you for that. That's actually very beautiful. That interpretation is honestly very insightful and kind of perfect. I actually really appreciate that feedback. That's a really good take on it. I didn't even think about that. So yeah, thank you a lot for that. Actually, I'm gonna think about that later. Pretty dope. So I'm gonna move on to the next passage because I also do want to. I know Amanda said that she wanted to read some stuff, and I'm also curious about that. So I'm gonna move on to the next one that's a little shorter, but this one's a little more personal, and some members here might understand aspects of this, but this is kind of quite the opposite uh, energy of the last one. So this one's a lot more ominous. So this one is called For the Day I Glance into Your Infinite Eyes. This was also written on the same day, directly after the last passage on the 22nd of January. So, the day I glance into your infinite eyes, I wandered into that dark chamber, seeking of any solid solace of hope and delight. There in that cornered void, you stood in perfect despair. My weak and weary hands reached for your grasp and toiled my heart into shattered shards of perfect brokenness. That there was unbroken and unwavering might in an otherwise dead and dying existence. To love the passion of dead roses, I found in you a light in that darkness of that chamber. May you be the fathomable entrance into the void on earth, embodied in a world unseen by humankind. Through your skeletal hands covered by black spectacles of tormented souls, I clasp with the hands of death. Every time I reach for the broken and decaying bricks fallen with forgotten time, I love the soft and subtle enchantment of your perfectly horrid entrapment. Take me by my spirit and savor me into the thunder cast upon your empire. So, this one is actually talking about a specific circumstance, and it's referring to an actual person. But I would say it's, again, those that would know me a little more during the last couple of years could kind of pick apart this and figure out what the heck I'm talking about. But at the same time, it's not exactly referring to my own past. It's referring to the present, and it's referring to uh, my future that is pending. So, uh, before I give an analysis of this one, which is a little deeper, I would like to ask anyone what they think of this so far.
What we think of what you shared so far? Was that your question?
Yeah, like just first glance without me explaining
So,
what every line means, what do you think of it?
so I think that the first one is interesting in the way that it was like a communion with like your higher self and your higher sense of divinity, and how that reflects to you dreaming of like this infinite, beautiful, perfected world, which is nice because I have very similar feelings that resonate with a lot of aspects of that. I also the fact that you use the word forevermore means like a huge amount to like me and Amanda, because that is a term that comes up in a lot of things that are very personal to us and our story and our journey. So it was interesting that it came up. And then the second one is interesting is that it seems like it's talking about your relationship to death and how you experience that relationship, I guess, like you said, through a person and an experience that you had. Which is interesting because it seems like all of us, in one way or another, have some sort of interesting relationship with the entity we call death. And it seems that it is present in everybody's spiritual journey. It seems to be a force that is at play. And it's interesting to see it come up in your poetry because obviously it has been a very big focal pillar of the stuff that we've been talking about and focusing about.
Thank you. Yeah, that is kind of accurate as well. Just kind of seeing the contrast between these two pieces that were written back to back. But yeah, it does. Now, I'm not referring to like death itself, but I'm referring to like a person that is very much like death. And so without kind of trying to be vague about this, I'll word it like this. So if I was to go kind of line by line, when I say I wandered into the dark chamber seeking of any solid solace of hope and delight. I'm quite literally referring about going into a place that is a dark chamber seeking hope and delight. There in the cornered void, you stood in perfect despair. I'm someone that was also there with me in that space. My weak and weary hands reached for your grasp and toiled my heart into shattered shards of perfect brokenness. This is me basically taking what I was at the time and accepting this other individual that was very much not like me. So that's basically me. Just it's kind of like if you have to work with someone and they're very much not like yourself, and you're trying to sort of understand them and reason with them to kind of find like a middle ground, right? Because you're both in the same place, and that's kind of what this is referring to. They're in that. Well, sorry, I just drank something. That there was unbroken and unwavering might in an otherwise dead and dying existence. This is also referring again to the motivation of the individual, that they seemed like they were dead and dying just in their persona and their personality and what they did. But then I go on to say, to love the passion of dead roses. That line very specifically is referring to a very specific lifestyle choice, a career field that does indeed deal with things like death, does indeed deal with things like that are very bad. And me already being in the military, this is already my reality. But at the time that this story takes place, it was not then my reality, but it was becoming, and actually also in the future. Then I go to say, I found in you a light in the darkness of that chamber. That's basically me saying I accept this path, I accept this lifestyle, and this is what I'm choosing. So then I say, maybe the fathomable entrance into the void on earth embodied in a world unseen by humankind. That is referring to the fact that most individuals that live their entire ordinary lives will never really go down this path or experience it, or some will never know it exists. I would say everyone in this server on some level can kind of see that in their own way, because everyone here kind of likes to deal with or toggle with things that are kind of unseen. Everyone here kind of is interested in things that are more kind of like cryptic or hidden knowledge, stuff like that, or just simply abstract. There's abstract ideas, and so a lot of people here should kind of vibe with that statement, because I think a lot of people do kind of seek the things that we cannot see. I go on to say, through your skeletal hands covered by black spectacles of tormented souls, I clasp with the hands of death. This is me referring to that individual, referring to exactly as they are, what they are, their characteristics. Clasp with death means like I am taking the hand and I'm going with it. Every time I reach for the broken and decaying bricks, fallen with forgotten time, I love the soft and subtle enchantment of your word entrapment. They're referring to a literal decaying bricks, fallen with forgotten time. That is a literal place that I am referring to, but it's also metaphorical. Second sentence is quite literally what this career field is. Subtle enchantment, but perfectly horrid entrapment. That are entrapments. That is a very poetic way of describing my ongoing lifestyle. The last sentence says, take me by my spirit and savor me into the thunder cast upon your empire. That's basically saying I dedicate my life to this, and I basically take that oath. So even though there is a lot of darkness, I would say, in this kind of thing, this kind of lifestyle that I have walked into, I see that it has a very how do I say, it's very important, and that there's a lot of good that it does do. It's like sometimes you have to do the wrong thing to do the right thing. There's a lot of that in this field. There's a lot of that in this career path, that some people that are already in it are going to kind of look past it, or that's just their normal, and so they don't think anything of it. So it is very strictly referring to the path that I've chosen in my life and why I want to choose it, even despite knowing that there are cautions. And it's also referring to what I'm taking on by doing that in general. And I think that a great way to relate to this passage is, sometimes people might do something that they don't like for money, or maybe to help their family, or to support themselves. I'm pretty sure everyone here can kind of relate to that in some way. But that is essentially the meaning of this and why I wrote it. If anyone has any other impact or any other sayings for this one, that is pretty much my analysis of this piece.
Yeah, I think I'm similar to Crimson, and in looking at this in contrast to the first one, if the first one is about the aspirational, I think this one is about like the reality and the reality on the ground, and almost like, well, I want to be like the person in the first poem. However, I still have to deal with the reality. I mean, need to be able to live my life in the world in the second poem. It almost reminds me of the Buddha saying, carry water, which means, yes, we can talk about, how great the cosmos, how great God is, how great infinity is, but at the same time, we still need to get up in the morning, brush our teeth. We're still dealing with potentially terrible situations, and what really defines us is how do we get get through those situations. And it's weird that sometimes the best literature came out of World War One, came out of the trenches. Leo Tolstoy um, wrote, I think, part of War and Peace when he was serving in the Crimean War in the 1850s, and seeing how terrible that war was. And so that's my general thought on it.
Thank you. I think that's beautiful, actually. That's a very good way to look at it because, yeah, there's a lot of warlike mentality that definitely went into this. And I do think that what you're saying, that it is kind of like a reflection of the reality that we live, even though we seek God, is also very accurate. Because even the very first sentence in there, I wandered into the dark chamber seeking of any solid solace of hope and delight. You're right. Like that's that right there. The first sentence, opening sentence, is basically like literally what you just said. It's, I'm seeking God, I'm seeking the heavens, right? But in the reality of the world that we live in, that's not as easy. And the rest of it follows kind of like very warlike, like you said, like going into war, even with God in my heart, choosing to go into an environment that is very godless, hoping to accomplish something, even if that means that you won't always do everything in the name of goodness. So, but that is the way with war anyway. But I really do appreciate your feedback on that. It's actually insightful as all hell. Let me see. There's one more that I'm going to do. This one is a lot more up to interpretation. This was made for a friend, though. This is I have a friend who's a police officer, and he asked me to write him a poem. He really wanted me to write him a poem, so I wrote him one. And this one kind of has relevance to the previous two, mostly the second one, but this one is a little harder to interpret. Then after that, I will just go on with the explanation and then everyone's interpretation of that. And then I'd like to open the floor up to anyone else who would like to read a poem or any kind of writing as well. Let me go to this real quick. So again, like I said, I wrote this one for a friend who's a cop. And so this was kind of about him as an individual, but this was also about the work he does. So this one was made on the 2nd of February this year. So the title of this one is There is a Rainbow in Heaven and Hell. There it stands, so fierce and abundant, a presence too fretful and encompassed with fright. Sorry, let me restart that. There it stands, so fierce and abundant, a presence too fretful and encompassed with flight. It pushes past anger and ignites with danger. There, standing still, framed and sturdy, he holds the trigger of freedom and fright. What is there but this rocky pavement of molten rocks, mobile with morbid tension? It shivers with a pent-up mention of passionate intention. What stands in the way of grief and strife? What moves with waterways that filter drifted decay? A man bolden with golden glory, a tool with honor and force, but held with the arms of tranquil skeletal remorse? There once was a passion that worked its way into the ground, a dirt road unending that is far-reaching and profound. There, he reaches, with one appendage extended forward, that forever-ending road. Ah yes, there. Screaming, I walk the road of distant pleasures and distant enriched rivers that run rampant with extravagance. There, in the distant wilderness, it sparkles clean gleaming, glimpses of hope and desire. Can I walk towards it without being encompassed by the dread and depths of hell? Says so a man in a space colored by dried and dreary dead roses, at the toll of an echoing bell. May there be so hopefully and encompassed with unbreakable dignity, there, in a place, to be the best and hold the most integral identity. So, this one, some people might be able to understand it as is, but before I go to the explanation, what is the takeaway, just face value, does that anyone might have of this?
I really enjoyed the part where it talked about um, the man in a space colored by dreary dead roses at the toll of an echoing bell. That was my favorite of the poem.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. That's also another thing that I really thought deeply about when I wrote that, and I will get to that explanation. But going from the first stanza of this, I read a lot of writings from this book that I have where they use the word there a lot. And there simply, you see, I use and I italicize the word there several times just because that is the opening sentence. The reason I put there in here is because it refers to um, basically how you are presently thinking in the moment at this instance, like right now, right here, at this time. That's what there stands for. So if I had to kind of go over this, there it stands so fierce and abundant, a presence too fretful and encompassed with flight. It pushes past anger and ignites with danger. There, standing still, framed and sturdy, he holds the trigger of freedom and fright. This is referring obviously to the role of a police officer or a person in law enforcement in general, or even a person in the military. So anyone that is holding a position that could basically exert dominance or authority over another individual is essentially what that first stanza is referring to altogether. It's referring to how a person would perceive that command presence and how it feels to be in that command presence. But it's mostly through the perspective of think like how do you feel when you get pulled over for a ticket? How do you feel when you're driving home and you knew that you had two things to drink that night and you know that you could get a DUI, or God forbid it be anything else, when you would be encompassed with that kind of presence, that fear that you might feel. He holds the trigger of freedom and fright. That doesn't just refer to like a firearm or a gun or something. That refers to the fact that he can take away your freedom. He can put you in a place that even mentally speaking, you feel like your sense of identity, your sense of freedom is endangered in a sense when you are basically in the presence of someone that has the authority and the power to take that away or put that in restriction to some extent. So that's what that whole stanza is actually referring to. Going to the second one, what is there but this rocky pavement of molten rocks, mobile with morbid tension? That's referring to the perspective of the officer. So that is a lot of times how they felt, especially my friend. When I say rocky pavement, that's referring to the fact that every day is different. Rocky pavement refers to also the fact that every instance that you have with a civilian or with anyone, like my case, we here in my branch, we deal with a lot of migrants. We deal with people that are crossing the border. We deal with drug smugglers and people that are trying to illegally come into the country. So that is a lot of times you don't know how that's going to happen. And a lot of times that's going to be a not so good experience. So molten rocks mobile with morbid tension. That's referring to the interpretation of the potential of a negative experience dealing with people that are doing things that they otherwise shouldn't be doing. It shivers with a pent up mention of passionate intention. That refers to the fact that the work that we do has a lot of passion to it. Even though it is difficult, there's a lot of passion in it, and that's the reason that we do it. So that's why we still feel that it's like, even though we deal with situations that are otherwise negative when it comes to people that we are enforcing, uh, we still have passion behind it, because it does serve a purpose. And sometimes it's hard to think about that, especially due to media or being in a situation where you're on the other end of it. Um, there's still a lot of people that do this with a good reason. Like, I mean, who are you going to call when your houses get broken into and you don't have a gun to defend yourself, or you know what I mean? So there's reason to do it, even though it's very difficult. What stands in the way of grief and strife? What moves with waterways that filter drifted decay? That's referring to the act of being enforcement itself. So that's kind of like, what moves with waterways that filter drifted decay. That's literally referring to a person that's in that position. Drifted decay is referring to like the negativity that we see in crime itself. So crime is everywhere, and sometimes it's hard to see it. Sometimes it's right in your face. A man golden with golden glory, a tool with honor and force. That's also referring to the positivity that would reflect on a person in that position. So even though they have a lot of scrutiny, especially at times during elections or politics and stuff, there's still a lot of people that, they dedicate their life to that, because that's the best way that they can help someone. So that's why I refer to a man is bold with golden glory. But held in the arms of tranquil skeletal remorse. That refers to the fact that even though a person can be very great in what they do in this position, tranquil skeletal remorse, that refers to the fact of literally that, yes, you can kill people. You can hurt people in that position. You can someone's life up. Like you could be the reason someone, their life is ended. Like there's a lot of harsh reality in that, but that's what that sense refers to. There was once a passion that worked its way into the ground, a dirt road unending that is far-reaching and profound. That is referring to the fact that sometimes the ground doesn't seem very paved, like the fact that there's very gray areas working law enforcement, or in my case, migraine interdiction. There's, sometimes you might be doing the wrong thing when you think you're doing the right thing, or maybe, I mean, even in any job, actually, that sentence right there could refer to any job where you're working very passionately towards something, but you still fuck up. You still mess up, and it doesn't go exactly how you planned it to, because the ground is unpaved. It seems like it's unending. It's like a dirt road. There's not a strict way to go. Sometimes there's a very gray area in these things, and that's why that whole sentence says that. And then I repeat the phrase there, bringing you back to the present moment. He reaches with one appendage extended towards that forever ending road. Ah, yes, there. That's also referring to using the tools of enforcement to make it happen. So he reaches with one appendage extended. That's also mostly referring to the hand, but it ought to be very metaphorical, referring to an act of enforcement itself. It doesn't have to be a literal weapon. It doesn't have to be like you're physically doing that. It just means that it's your impact on that gray area within the realm of enforcement. So I say, ah, yes, there. Screaming. I walk the road of distant pleasures and distinct, enriched rivers that runs rampant with extravagance. This is referring to the fact that even though this road that we take is really difficult to follow at times, we still choose to do it because we think it's extravagant. We think that, there's extravagant that runs rampant in this path, because there is a positive aspect to it. Like someone is getting beaten up by their boyfriend or their girlfriend or whatever the case may be, and you take the guy away who's screaming and kicking, and then now this other person, this in this scenario, this woman is so happy. She's so thankful the fact that you were there to save her life, right? Or maybe in my case, we stop drug interdiction. We stop people from bringing drugs into the United States. Now there's people somewhere, especially on the Gulf of Mexico, places on the West Coast as well, mostly the West Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. Now they can't do crack cocaine. Now their family members are going to be more easy to get help because they don't have as much access to these drugs that are destroying their lives. So that's what it means by rampant extravagance. There in the distant wilderness sparkles clean, gleaming glimpses of hope and desire. And that's just the gratification of doing this kind of work. Next sentence is, can I walk towards it without being encompassed by the dread and depths of hell? That's referring to the fact that people do get corrupt in this field because PTSD is a real thing. Uh, Hypertension is a real thing that causes with this kind of work. So it's very easy to become the stereotype of the bad law enforcement officer that is pulls people over for no reason because he's having a bad day. He's seen so many things. He's witnessed so many murders. Or in my case, you think this is also a real thing. You think everybody that hops the border is a drug addict or they're trying to bring drugs into the country. You think every foreigner is someone that is trying to do harm to the country. You think that everyone that isn't like fed, as we call it, is a bad person. It's not a real thing that affects, honestly, I would say the majority of the percentage of people that do this. So this is questioning whether or not we can still to do this with compassion and not be lost in it in a bad way. So, says so a man in a space colored by dried and dreary dead roses at the toll of an echoing bell. The sentence is referring to the fact that those that say the previous sentence, you know, we are the toll of an echoing bell refers to, like, you hear it all the time, you see it all the time. You might hear a bell from a church when you're passing by a street. It's always in the back of your mind, and a bell has sort of kind of a mysterious tone to it. It has a ringing sensation, something that you kind of like a ringing in your ear, something it's always present, but it's always in the back of your mind. So even though we walk this path with the intention of compassion, there's always that potential that the darkness in what we do can creep up on us and basically destroy us, destroy who we are, destroy our connection with God. That's what that whole sentence is about. The last two sentences say, may there be so hopefully encompassed with unbreakable dignity. There, a place to be the best and hold the most integral identity. That is like a prayer to God. So I say, may there be so hopefully, right? So may God help us, right? That we, even though doing this work is very, very hard for a lot of people, there's a lot of suicide in this. People can't take it anymore, but it's all they worked for. There's a lot of darkness in that. It's basically the last two sentences is a prayer to God that even though we may fall victim to this scene, to this hell that exists on earth, might we still be righteous in it and still be, good and have a integral identity. That is what the ending of it means. So the whole thing, I know not everyone here works in this kind of field, but I'm sure there are some people that can relate to this in a personal way. Maybe you have a family member or a friend that's going through a lot of really bad stuff and you try to help them. And sometimes you get dragged down in their darkness because you're so compassionate. You really love them. You really care about them. You want to help them. But sometimes it does creep up on you. So it doesn't just have to be about law enforcement. This can also be about anything that you're really going through. When you're still praying to God that you can keep your sanity, keep your purity, right? So in a nutshell, it's a summary. That is my last poem or creative writing, and that's pretty much the meaning of it. If anyone's got any feedback on that, go ahead to say that. If not, we could just move on to anyone else who wants to read their poems.
So in looking at this, like I've talked to a few judges in the past year or so, and I'm looking at this like in the perspective of a judge that you have all this power, and most of the people who come through the courthouse door and walk inside the bar, if they're not attorneys and you're a criminal court judge, they're usually how can we say not the best people in society, and it's almost like from the perspective of the judge, they might get jaded by seeing all the people who have, quote unquote, failed in society. But the one thing that keeps them going is the 1 to 10% who they're able to guide through the process and, almost like guide them to the first poem and sort of like guide them to being the better version that they can be. and how even through that process of guiding someone, especially if they might be an alcoholic or a drug addict, that through the process of guiding them, there's various pitfalls that they can fall to. But at the end times, if someone is able to get through the process, they are able to show their unbreakable dignity, and they are able to keep their integral identity, and finally reach the end of their probation or the end of their journey, and the judge and the defendant can sort of meet at the other end, that hey, you went through hell, but now you're out of it, and you're going to be better off for it.
Thank you. I think that's a pretty good interpretation of this. I would say that honestly, especially in the country, I mean, I don't know if you are in America, but everyone here is either in America or Canada, but we have very similar kind of systems. I would say that everyone can kind of real shut up, sorry, my dog. Everyone can kind of relate to that and like what you said. But yeah, I think that definitely a judge or people that go into courtrooms and stuff like that, they would definitely feel this. And especially a judge, that sees a criminal, a person coming in, they would definitely be jaded automatically, because that's already their that's their experience. So they're going very strictly off, what they already know about that kind of circumstance. But I like what you said as well about, a person changing, can be seen as someone that does have an integral identity. Which is often the case for people that really do try to change themselves. And honestly, the fact that I even came back here temporarily is kind of due to that as well, personally speaking.
Let's see, Creatrix, did you have something you wanted to read?
Yeah, I got some old stuff here that I recently came across. And when I say old, I mean like it's written between 1994 and 1996, when I was 14 years old, 15, 16 years old. An old journal that came up when we moved. So it's like looking into the past for me, into the perspective of who I was at that age. But it's been really cool. Thanks, Sandra, for sharing all of this from the adult part and the adult eyes. This is definitely going back in perspective, and it's interesting to me. But Crimson also has things to read. Are you already ready with yours, Crimson?
I can go if you want. If you need more time, or unless you want to go, yeah, you should go first.
Okay. Yeah, I've got something here. So this one was 1994, 14 years old, and not exactly sure what was going on, but there's certainly a vibe to how I was feeling. It's called Unworthy. When I wake in the morning, the birds outside sing. How can they sing for me? As I walk in the meadow, the sun shines above. How can it shine on me? As I gaze at the blue sky, the clouds clear away. Why don't they rain on me? As I walk through the playground, the children smile. Why don't they throw stones at me? As I walk up to you, you open your arms. Why don't you push me away? And as I look in the mirror, how can I stand to admit that I'm me today? Yeah, I would say that's probably how I felt a lot of those years, from maybe 10 years old into my teens. Things that I struggled with, definitely worthiness, and trying to understand how the world around me could stay good when I felt definitely like I was unworthy of it treating me that way. And the things that I was confused about at that age, or I looked around and was disturbed about, are reflected in some of the other things I wrote, like this one here. It says, uh, clowns. Uh, clowns. Painted smiles, fabricated laughter, an act to be acted forever after. Every action to please another. Make them laugh. Throw pies at your brother. Big shoes to fill, a job to be done. Make hidden your person, shine through to no one. Don't let them know you. Keep to yourself. They'll like you better. Leave your heart on the shelf. The world's a tent full of lying frowns. No place for people. The world's full of clowns.
That was deep.
For a 15-year-old, maybe, hey?
The world is full of clowns.
Yeah,
And
Amanda.
then this one, yes?
I was just going to give feedback. Did you want to continue? I can hold off.
Oh, no, go for it, please.
I was listening to that and I was going, damn, wow, that was pretty intense. Yeah, definitely for a teenager, that is pretty intense. But I really can feel from that passage, like, your emotion that you were giving off. It makes me really think about some of the times in my teenage years as well when I was having some very similar thoughts about my identity and about other people around me. So overall, pretty good.
Thank you. This is when I was 16, and at the age of 16, I was trying to prove myself. I was trying to move out of my parents' home, prove I was a big kid, and I could look out for myself. I had a boyfriend at the time. We were going to make that work. And I was going to high school, maintaining like a high grade point average and um, honor rolled and things for the most part. And then I decided that didn't matter, and I was going to stop going to school so that I could work 2 or 3 jobs and be an adult. So I actually dropped out of high school about 3 months shy of graduation so that I could prove something to whomever, and got myself a real life. And while I was waiting for the bus one morning after working my nighttime job, going to my daytime job, I wrote this poem while looking kind of not very compassionately at a homeless person across the street. It's called The Looking Glass. I saw a man on the street today. His clothes were torn, his face was gray. He watched me waiting for my bus. Though his mouth was silent, his eyes did fuss. He saw my thoughts upon my face. He looked in my eyes and then to his case. He could see I felt no pity for him. My eyes did not droop, my expression not grim. He sensed the envy that I had, and then for me that man was sad. My face was clean, my clothes were new, my feet were dry in stylish shoes. Yet he was home, right where he sat. He had his blanket, his bottle, his hat. That was his world, he was the king. There wasn't a song that man couldn't sing. No one above him, no one below. He needn't be told what he didn't know. And I was a prisoner to society, so called. Into my own skin that day I crawled. Through my eyes I saw so many things, successfully ruling me, everyday kings. The paper in my wallet, the band on my wrist, the black book I carry in my clenched fist. Bound by so many invisible gods, my willingness to cooperate struck me as odd. Please, dirty my face, tear my clothes, burn my watch and purse, and in that fire cremate the ones who bless me with their curse. And I know that every coin dropped at my feet will be a plea for help from the world of marionette.
Hello.
Wow.
So I actually really like that, but I guess my first question is, did that person actually exist? Like
Yes.
I'm listening to this like maybe that person didn't exist and you actually saw God.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. To
Because
me, that person exists.
because I'm reminded of like a passage in the Bible. I don't know the exact verse, but I think it's like someone talking to Jesus, and it's like saying, "Well, Jesus, I never prayed to you. I was never devout. Why am I in heaven?" And it's like, "Well, do you remember the time you gave me water? You clothed me. You gave me food on the street." And Jesus is like, well, that was me. And he like says to the other people who didn't end up going to heaven, and Jesus, the people are like, well, Jesus, I pray to you. I pray to God every day. I did my prayers every day. I went to church every Sunday. And Jesus was like, well, do you remember that time you didn't give me food? You didn't speak to me. For every time you didn't do that for that person, then you didn't do it for me. And
Right.
it's like I'm thinking about it that like we are one human family, and I think like and this is like you were almost like acknowledging that person had a humanity, and how we should all do better to acknowledge that. I know like a lot of someone like told me in school one time that a lot of homeless people, if they ask you for money, and you at least turn to them and like politely acknowledge that you don't have any money, that to them is enough, because at least you acknowledge their presence. And I didn't believe it until it happened to me that some woman like asked me for money and help, but like I ended up like talking to her for a minute or two, like trying to guide her in the right direction. And like she turned to me and said, you know what? The best thing you did was at least stop and acknowledge my presence and talk to me. And she says that's worth any amount of money that I received tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Connecting, right? That's something that we often, a lot of members of our society are denied that connection because they're judged as somehow not worthy of it because they look a certain way or because they have not whatever's required for us to see them as equal. I mean, us. I just mean many of us, many of them
Yeah, I want to
connecting.
say
Right.
that was awesome. I was muted and I was going, oh no, what? I was saying that the whole time. That was really good. I really like kind of vibe with that as well. I think there's a lot of times when I do help homeless people, but then there's also times when I really can't. And also the thing about just acknowledging them as well, like that's like a very grateful perspective. I sometimes forget about that. I get so caught up in my own day to day that it's hard for me to kind of think about the suffering of other people. Sometimes I stop and I help people if they're in a car accident before the police get there. But then there are times when, I really can't, or I'm so focused in my own thing, and it's hard to remember the suffering of other people that's happening right around you.
Yeah, we get stuck in our own bubble of things, right? And sometimes it's because we're busy, and sometimes because of what exists outside of the bubble we know is painful, so we stop looking at it. I feel like sometimes we draw the blinds because we feel like if we have to see it, then we have to feel it. But there's such a gift in actually letting someone know that you feel what they feel too.
I have two poems that I'd like to share. I
I'd love it.
get an opportunity
Hold
to.
on, Crimson, did you want to go next?
Can totally wait, dude. No, go ahead, Michael.
Are you sure you don't want to go first?
I am. I would love to hear what you got.
Yep, Michael, go ahead.
Okay. Um, this first one I wrote a couple of years ago, and then the other one that I wrote is only about a year or two old. So this first one is called Cobblestone. Um, when I was young, I had a fascination with cobblestones, how it lined the roads, a man's Morse code laid in stone, a moment past of energy, perpetuating a longevity of a place so heavenly known, where moss grows between the cracks, an abundance of mystery, I can tell you that. And critters roam the walkway, elegantly dancing in their own game, just as we dance in our own game. But if you take a quick second and look a little deeper, you will find it's all the same. This planet is our home. The streets that we roam, our mothers and fathers before walked and bore stone. Look at how much we have grown. We are like a rose coming into its bloom. We are a note on a string that harmonizes in tune. We are every good thing and every bad, angels on one shoulder and devils on the other. We know we're not perfect, but we strive for better days, to be better versions of ourselves, gone from all the yesterdays. I miss that cobblestone road. All the lessons it taught me, a teacher in disguise. No words were spoken, for if it did, it would probably tell lies. A blessing in disguise, a cobblestone road. So yeah, that was my first one. Any thoughts on that, or
Yeah, I was listening to that. I like the way it rhymed, and it was kind of like made me think like about honestly like my own life in a way where like kind of when you're talking about how like your fathers and your family like walked the same road, like the same cobblestone road for years and stuff. It makes me imagine like I think I judged like my parents at certain times in my life, like how could you have done this? And then now I grow up and I'm like, wow, I'm kind of in their I'm kind of in their shoes now a little bit in some ways. So kind of like walking the same cobblestone path that like they did. I definitely vibe with that. And also the fact that you said cobblestone is like everywhere. So it's not just like me that's feeling this. It's not just me that's walking the cobblestone path. Like everyone else is. They interpret it. So yeah, overall, I think that was pretty relatable, at least for me.
nice? I'm glad. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and calling it a teacher. I love that, right? Like I can look back at so many things in my life that you would never think of calling a teacher, and something like that really resonates. A silent
Yeah.
teacher. Hmm.
Um, this next one, I don't know. I called it robots, but um, I don't know. Yeah, I called it robots. So, uh, in the multiverse where realities collide, I navigate the cosmos, my mind open wide. With robotic precision, I roam through the haze, my circuits connecting in this psychedelic craze. I'm an android voyager beyond time and space, infinite dimensions I traversed with masons, metallic limbs dancing to the cosmic race, the soul of wires and dreams in the multiversal face. Electric dreams and neon streams, they lead the way, as I venture through realms where machines and spirits play. In the depths of the quantum, I found my place where robotic hearts merge with the infinite space. With each digital byte, I decoded the stars in the labyrinth of data I've journeyed rather far. Through fractal mazes, my circuits intertwine, robotic psyche dancing with realities combined. The multiverse, a playground where androids roam free, with algorithms showing them who to be. In this grand odyssey, I'm a traveler of circuits, a cosmic android sage unraveling mysteries under the surface. Binary thoughts in a symphony of sound, robotic verses echo through the void so profound. I compute the secrets the universe conceals. In this psychedelic realm, my robotic heart reveals. Through wormholes of data, I defy the laws of man, a mechanical shaman with a silicon plan. In this digital trance, dimensions unwind, androids and multiverses end in an eternal combine. As the cosmic circuits hum and the binary glows, I'll roam the multiverse where the unknown flows. In this dance of robots and realities I transcended, a cybernetic poet on a journey with no ends.
Ooh,
That was a good
ooh.
one. That was some bars. I like that one.
You
Yeah,
should
I'm
voice
like
that
dying
over
over
We
here.
should
some like
definitely post
music
that
on a
one in
video.
general chat for sure.
You should, if you haven't, you should consider making a video out of that one.
Yeah, you should turn that into a song. Your other song was cool too. I listened to it, but that would be a good song.
10 out of 10. When did you write that? What's the date on that?
That was like probably a year or two ago I wrote that.
Can you repeat the line with the shaman? Something shaman?
The shaman line.
Mechanical shaman or something like that? The
Yeah.
silicon plants?
Hang on.
Dude, what was the motivation for that? I have so many questions. I'm sorry.
That one hit. That was like the other one was beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
post
through
that.
warm,
Like this
warm,
hits.
through wormholes of data, I defy the laws of man, a mechanical shaman with a silicon plan. In this digital trance, dimensions unwind, androids and multiverses, and in an internal combine.
Wow, my friend.
That was the best part. I like that one.
Yeah. Jeez, that's
With a
good.
silicon plan.
If we weren't all muted, you would have been so
How do we
interrupted by our sounds.
non-destructively
Same.
press carbon into a crystalline
going.
lattice?
Can I give an analysis, or not analysis, but I just want to say my takeaway from that.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, dude. First of all, like what Amanda was saying, I was going, oh, no way, oh, dude, like the whole time. But anyway, secondly, no, when I was listening to that, I was like thinking about. First, I was thinking about you were like. First, it was coming off like you were talking about like your own like spiritual transition, I guess. But then it started referring to more like this was I started taking away from it like you were talking about your relationship, like I don't know, like to the internet or to technology as it is in our lives every day, but also combined with like your own like development. That's kind of what it was. How I was interpreting it. But the way that like my stuff is more like just creative writing, but that was definitely like a combination of like true poetry, but also creative writing at the same time. So
It's
like 10
phenomenal.
out of 10, man.
Yeah, I think you should definitely find a beat and make that a song. Let's put it on YouTube. Let's do a little. I'll teach you how to make it, how to run a marketing campaign, and you can be the next Great and Square, dude.
And I've been I never made that one into a song. It's just been sitting on my backlog of
I
writing.
think that's a
I've been writing a lot
perfect project.
since I was like 16. So
Do you have any of your stuff from way back then?
I've been while I was listening, I was going through some of my old stuff trying to find anything anything worthy, I guess you could say.
I think it's gonna be hard to top that last. It's like as a mic drop.
That is, yeah. That really
Yeah.
hits.
Sucks that I gotta follow that one. I have a couple good ones. So, do you have any more that you want to do?
Why don't you go ahead? I'll keep looking and see if I can find any decent ones.
So I will try and paste these in the general chat, and I will also read them. So this one is called "Thy Will," and it's from the perspective of like God. It says, "Thine will is my will, for thee is I." Isaiah 55:8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. There is no cup, only a grail that cannot be held in mortal hand. It lies at the seat of the ark. My grail overfloweth with all that is dividing before only itself and the one. You cannot shatter that which is immutable, for it is generator, operator, and destroyer. Now go forth and do my will, for there is no other will than mine. Verily, verily, I say unto you, dogma will be your downfall. But I guess first we must fall before we can grow tall. Do not allow a book to bind thee, for it is I who bind books. The crooks in the castles are but my vassals, who I put here to give you hassles, for you to overcome, as my will be done. I present you a key that you cannot see. All of this, I do. Yet you loathe me. But why? I am you, and you are me. Don't you see?
Mm. Oh, that was flowing through you, wasn't it?
I just love that one.
Wow.
I read that a while ago.
It makes me think about like what I would think about when I'm in prayer. Like there's certain times when I'm praying and like I kind of imagine like that someone's talking to me and they're saying something that's very along those lines. So it almost sounds like, maybe like God really was talking through you when you wrote that. And he says the same kind of thing to other people that he speaks with. Cause that, like, the whole message of that and kind of how it was written out is very similar to like things that I often think about when I pray. So maybe that is like pretty
I
much in the word of God.
definitely felt like that one was very divinely inspired. Yeah, I wrote that. It felt very divinely inspired. Yep. But yeah, that was one that I really enjoyed. I'm going to do another one here. I'm just trying to put it in the chat properly. As it,
I like that. I like that one.
yeah, like I feel like that day when that came through, it felt like it was like God talking to the demi, is what it felt like.
Mhm.
Right, because like there's this idea that there is any sort of free will, right? Like that there isn't some sort of underlying like set of chain of like things and will that has already been willed before your contribution to, right? So it holds like the underlying will of all things.
And the name that God uses when he addresses the person he's talking to through you there is Samael.
Yeah, Samael means blind god. You know, bold underline. This is the other one I got. This one is called The Core. There is a core that we once bore in a world beyond our imagination, a place where we took flight and soared evermore, a place of absolute infinite possibility, a beautiful garden of pure tranquility amongst dimensions galore, all of us, our own personal dumb. The singularity that offers only pure clarity, all of us engaged in charity merrily, a pure harmonic that was omnitronic. We were the totality of our reality. But then came a time where we lost our ride, forced to experience a linear timeline. Till the day we remember that core that we were once before, to take flight again once more on the dimension galore forevermore.
Amen. Amen.
And the picture that goes along with that is the mathematical fractal infinity of the vector equilibrium. Hiya.
When when I was listening to that, I was thinking about like it sound like very psychedelic almost. Like sound like I listen to a lot of like near death experience stories where there's like people that they do die and they have this incredible experience and then they come back. It almost sounds like what someone would talk about when they like meet God or they go to the other side and they're talking about like their expanded consciousness in a sense that's like not related to their life anymore. So it sounds like when you're writing that, like you're not Crimson anymore. Like you're a different person. That's how I was thinking about it when I was listening.
I feel like it's my higher self, like how the first one that you wrote, you said that it was like you were representing a higher aspect of yourself. I feel like that's where like this stuff comes from, like from the higher self.
There's one in my little book here that I guess you could say as a child I was attempting to talk about my higher self. It's really short here. Where is it? One sec. Okay. So this was at a time, 1995, 15. I definitely did not think highly of myself. I could barely find a scrap of worth. But this came through after, I guess you would call it meditating. At that time, I did not know that's what it was. I was kind of dissociating, but I wrote this very small little thing that I hold dear now. It says, a blonde-haired little girl. She walks with grace and beauty, her head held up so high. Though her feet are firmly on the ground, her expectations skim the sky. Her future's bright, her eyes a twinkle, her fingers clasp the world. But in her heart, she still remains that blonde-haired little girl.
That's kind of sad, but like also
Oh
like
wow.
really like pure. I don't know how to describe that.
I think that's like you're talking about like your inner child. I think that's what you're referencing is like that the part of you before you realized what this world is all that like before any sort of taint hit you, you were just that cute blonde little girl.
I was definitely in a place where I wanted to be something um, important or something worthy or something, whatever. So I was looking forward at like from this place, what can I see ever happening? Because I didn't see anything that could turn into anything great. Like I really didn't have a lot of figures in my life that were breathing a lot of encouragement or building me up in any way. So I really couldn't see the trajectory where I would amount to anything. But I glimpsed this and I thought, wow, if what I saw at all was me, like, how do I get there from here? And I didn't know how, but I did know that that version of me still honored the fact that I was the child I was, and that part couldn't be taken away. So I knew that whatever she was doing in the higher ways, she was still carrying the child. So that told me to still carry the child. And that the blonde-haired little girl, even though with time my hair would start to fade. When I was young, it was white blonde. Now my roots come in like a light brown. But I've stayed blonde. I've kept my hair blonde on purpose because of how strong this imagery of this blonde-haired, brown-eyed little girl. Um, that's a really important part that I kept. That's when I feel like me.
Oh, I don't know. Like I almost wanted to cry when I listened to that. Not gonna lie.
I found another one. It's more written like a song, but I could like just read it out.
Just hit it how you think it needs to be said.
You should be a rapper.
This is called Protect the Kid.
Mm.
Um, it has no, I don't know why I called it that. This is one of my like psychosis writings. Um, Matrix coming through the lines, coming through the times, come in refines with different minds, patterns and rhymes, different levels of pie crust eaten in rhyme flux, mystery, history, summoning portals, sundering wormholes, putting a stop to the infernals. Distanced by gore holes, matter fact estate, etheric regulate, resonate, oscillate, reverberate, ovulate. Teaching me releasing trees, black arachnid totalities. Backbreak mystic, release words was gifted through evolutionary sequence, get with the deepness. Perpetual pretense, insert patterns and configurations, mess with universe for sake of nations. Walking through the halls, glass dome inauguration, and interdimensional vortexual diluted propagation. Interdimensional masturbation, laying waste to the spawns produced through collective hatred. Some call it sacred, masonry Illuminati, just a title you got from mommy. Ridiculous how we live in a system, some unaware what is given. I'll leave a little bit of wisdom. Infinity.
Wow. This is good stuff.
Infinity.
I want this on my playlist. Wow.
Okay, I have a question. So you're definitely like a lyricist for sure. But what was the motivation for this? Because I have a lot of theories about what the motivation could be.
For what I wrote, what I just wrote, like read to you there.
Yeah.
I was going through something at the time.
Clearly.
I was seeing things from like another universe or something. I don't know. I put it on paper.
Protect
Well,
the
you know
child.
what?
All that.
It's pretty
Protect the
cool.
child.
I think it was pretty cool though. Like when I was listening to that, I also felt like I was kind of disassociating too. You're talking about like the Illuminati or whatever, but like other ways of thinking. I don't know. I kind of felt like I was going on a trip, but I didn't take anything.
For me, it felt like one of those like spider traps. And then like the moment that I felt it, I like scanned it and then I did like complex ninjutsu mirror magic to be like, thank you for sharing your technology. Basically what I did. It was fun. It was an interesting experience. And it was you need to start putting these things into songs.
Yeah, some of them are in songs, for sure. Some of them are released. I do have a YouTube channel. I'll share it in the general chat.
I'll follow it. That's cool. On the topic of protect the child, it reminded me of another one
Protect the
that's in
child.
here. I have one that I wrote when I was 15, and I was babysitting, and some of the people I was babysitting for, there's a lot of these people in a place near my high school where it was all single moms on welfare, and they were paying with subsidies and things like that. I ran into a lot of kids in tough places, and it was hard on the heart to see these kids. But yeah, this one is called Too Much. Come, little child, I'll tell you a tale of fairies, pixies, and gnomes, enchanted castles, princes and frogs, magical forests and domes. What's that, you say? You haven't the time to be bothered with trivial things? Such a big word from so small a mouth, confusion and sadness it brings. Your little eyes have seen too much, shed too many tears. Too many nights those horrid sounds have found your little ears. Your little mind, it knows so many things it shouldn't know. Too many times the adult world has broke your little soul.
I wish I could go back in time and give you like the biggest hug ever.
You did.
Yeah. That book is like very interesting because like I know a lot about you. So like just like hearing the words of like teenage you is like I can really see like the depth of your being through it. And like how much like work you've done to come to where you are now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was listening to that and I just literally went, oh. I was like, that was so sad, but like creative and sad. It's kind of like when you watch a movie that's like really sad, but it's so like entrancing. It's so like it draws your attention in, but at the end of the movie, you're just crying. But you're like, that was so beautiful. That's what I was thinking of.
Thank you. I definitely seem to have been caught in something. Like I was convinced that there was something deeply, intrinsically wrong with me. Based on what, I couldn't really tell you. I don't know. I just like this other short one here that I hid for a long time. Like this page was folded in half at one point so that no one would see it. But it says searching. I sit alone in the still of the night and watch the fire dance. Captivated by the light, I slip into a trance. Somewhere in that little flame lies the answer that I seek, the evil dormant in my soul, the secret that I keep.
Ah, oh, oh man. Yeah, I definitely can like vibe and like feel your the distraught that you were going through in most of these pieces, and it is kind of heartbreaking, not gonna lie, but I understand it's it was the best way for you to express your situation, and I'm glad that you had that outlet because it is very creative. It's written very well, but the overall meaning of these is a little sad, but it's written very well and it's pretty creative. So I think that it's pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you. It's kind of wild going back into this and finding it and just like gives me an opportunity to kind of, with the skills I have now, the perspective I have now, to kind of tap in and like hold that version of myself, through these words, like through this book. I can like hold her and like maybe do with a little bit of the spiritual kintsugi where you fill in the cracks with gold, right? And fortify, going back in space and time, you're able to hold another version of yourself and honor the work that being faced so that you could be what you are.
I found another poem
Love it.
Let's do it.
about my father. Are you guys down to hear it, or
Yeah, let's hear
for
it.
sure.
Let's
Okay.
keep going. We might as well keep going until we
I'll,
got nothing left in the clip.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I will have to go after this just because I have a 9:30 bedtime. But I'm down to hear at least one more before I dip.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is kind of like a prayer, kind of, but it's a poem too. Father, can you hear me? On your mountain you sit and watch. I down below can hear thee. In the bellows my soul cries. Father, can you hear me? On your throne I call to such. For my throne stands next to thee, our legacy, and thus. Father, can you hear me? On earth where you left us. My heart weeps at your absence. Our lives have changed so much. Father, where art thou? Your presence so near yet far. Like a holy ghost, like a stale cigarette, like a moment, like a star. I call on you, Father, protect our family with your right hand of justice. Do not be wavered by illusions that cross your path and flux this. For reality holds the truth. It's the moment of time and truth. Now feel his hammer of justice.
Wow, it's powerful.
Damn.
Hammer of justice.
You should like definitely post that because I pray with like stuff like that.
Yeah, it's powerfully beautiful.
Yeah.
You're a very interesting person, my man.
Well, thank you. You are all very interesting as well. I have enjoyed all your writings. It was very breathtaking, actually.
Yeah, this has been an amazing event. I think we can wrap up here for tonight, but I definitely think we should come back for a round two in the near future. Sandra, considering that this event was your idea, I want to give you the floor if you had any final thoughts for tonight.
All right, guys. My final thoughts is definitely let's do a part 2 because this is just too interesting to not have a part 2. And I don't only have to be the one to host the next one. Anyone can also host it as well, just like same platform, but just kind of whoever brings it up first. But other than that, honestly, thank you guys for listening to my stuff initially, and just hearing all your works as well has truly inspired me to write some more. And hopefully we all can share some stuff the next time. So I appreciate everyone.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra, and also thank you to Creatrix, Michael, and Crimson for all of your contributions. Again, this has been the Temple Mount podcast. Check us out on YouTube or on Discord. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And let's all head up to the Templars Tavern for the rest of the night. Good night, everyone.
Namaste.